Joining us now is Jim Dean, the chair of Democracy for America. Jim has been with us before. We're always delighted to have him. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Now, look, last time, let me start with something I'm curious about. Okay, just the last time we had you on the show, we were talking about your efforts on behalf of Elizabeth Warren. And obviously, it doesn't look like she's running. So where are you guys now? I tell you, I think that was a very worthwhile effort for any number of reasons. We could talk about that. But how do you feel about that effort? And what are you thinking now about the presidential race?
Well, we were actually pleased for the effort, and a lot of folks got into this, and our organizers did a great job in New Hampshire and Iowa to get a lot of folks active and get them going. And even though Senator Warren isn't running, there's lots of stuff to work on, as you know, RJ. So, for now, we are in a very good position to really push the debate. And that's what we're doing right now. We just sent recently this week an email out. We want our members to urge Secretary Clinton to sign on to Senator Baldwin's bill that severely crimps really what has been a corrupt merry-go-round between Wall Street and the Department of Treasury and some of the other financial regulatory agencies. And it's a great bill. In particular, really stops this institutionalized corruption of companies being able to give big bonuses to employees who go to work for the U.S. government.
Yeah, Jim, let's talk. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Jim,
Sure.
let's talk about that for a second, because a lot of people don't realize it even now, but Wall Street banks, including Citigroup and the ones that have been basically running the economic arms of our government in many ways for far too long, which is one of Elizabeth Warren's big issues, they actually, if you go to work for, let's say, as Undersecretary of the Treasury for, something very close to Wall Street's heart or whatever it might be, they will actually pay you a multi-million-dollar bonus sometimes to do that, right?
Well, yeah, it's in one form or another. It might be a golden parachute at the end, or it might be deferred compensation. Antonio Weiss, who was up for a Undersecretary of the Treasury position, I believe that number was $21 million. And several other folks who have already been in government and received bonuses have gotten, millions of dollars in that. And that's just disgraceful. I mean, it's just nothing but graft. And the Senator Baldwin's bill ends that. Candidates Bernie Sanders and Martin O'Malley are supporting this. We are urging Secretary Clinton to do the same thing. And you're going to see more of this from us in trying to make sure that candidates, all of the candidates, not just Secretary Clinton, get it right, particularly when it comes to the relationship between the government and the investment banking industry.
Yeah, and I always have to mention at this point when we start talking about presidential politics, I do work for Bernie Sanders, but I'm glad that Martin O'Malley's behind this. I would love to see Hillary Clinton get behind it too. It's an important bill, Tammy Baldwin's bill, to end this corrupt practice, and the main thing is it ought to get passed. And I think the more, if we had Secretary Clinton joining the chorus, I think it would help tremendously. So I'm glad. So what are you guys doing to push that bill?
Well, we've actually are running a petition campaign to urge again the Secretary Clinton to get on this and to support it. We'll likely take more actions as it gets closer to a vote when it's going to matter. But in the meantime, we've got other issues affecting economic inequality that have to be addressed, as Senator Sanders is certainly doing on his campaign, which we are absolutely thrilled about. But we're going to see the TPP come back, and we're going to have another opportunity to do something about it, particularly the fact that, the many giveaways that are in that agreement to corporations. We're going to have a chance to voice ourselves about that, and I think of more than a few Democrats who have supported this bill are going to change their mind, particularly over the issue of human trafficking and slavery.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. We're talking with Jim Dean, the head of Democracy for America, because we're going to do we'll have an entire segment on the Malaysian slave dimension of this story. But the TPP, let me get your read on this, Jim. Jim, because a lot of people said, well, fast track, which is the last time you and I talked, Congress was debating over fast track, which is basically grease the skids for passage of this bill. And a lot of people thought, obviously, that was a setback for our side when fast track passed. But the message I keep trying to push out, and I think you're way ahead of me on this, is that battle isn't lost yet by any means. We can still stop the TPP, right?
No, we certainly can, and look, admittedly, they've got a few more cards now that the fast track legislation has been passed. But the fact of the matter is when we start looking at the record of Malaysia on human rights, and other countries involved with this, and some of the other parts of this agreement. I mentioned the investor settlement dispute, which giving corporations extrajudicial powers. That's going to come back again. And as we get closer to the election, and it will be closer to the election, we need to force these people to stand up for human rights, stand up for the power of taxpayers and consumers over corporations. And they're going to have to be on the record on that. And I believe that we're going to change a few minds because of that when people all of a sudden realize that, A, lots of folks are paying attention, and B, the provisions in this agreement are really bad. And so, we're going to take that shot again.
I'm sorry to jump in there, Jim Dean, but I guess the other piece of it, and I want to get your thoughts on this, is you mentioned, you want to let people know they're watching. What about consequences? I mean, what about if you get somebody who's been elected as a good progressive Democrat or presented themselves as this to Congress, and then they vote for something like this, which it could have at least as devastating an effect on the American worker as NAFTA did? What do you think about the whole accountability issue, whether it's primarying them, running somebody against them in the primary, or some way saying to them, look, if you vote for this thing, there's going to be consequences?
Well, we're on the record as saying we're going to look for primary opportunities. We understand they're not going to be present in every single race in 2016, but certainly they could be present, if not in 2016 and 2018. And we're going to look for those opportunities because, RJ, as you are alluding to, the one language that everybody understands in Congress is a threat to their incumbency. And this seems to be the only way that it's going to wake up some of these folks, and particularly folks who have presented themselves as progressives, presented themselves on the side of working people and of labor, and are acting against those interests. So we are going to look for those opportunities. This is not a done deal that we all are just simply forgetting. This is a major thing. And if you're a Democrat and you're on the side of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, you are against labor, you are against working families, and you are against restoring economic equality and opportunity equality in this country, and we have to do something about it.
Jim Dean, that's one of the reasons I like you, because you just say it like it is. I mean, I really appreciate that you don't mince words there. So thanks for that. And a couple other things I wanted to talk to you about. One is we've got the whole Glass-Steagall issue coming up again. Glass-Steagall separating the big bank gambling, the Wall Street casino, from people's money and government protection and insurance and so on, not to mention bailouts. So Glass-Steagall was repealed as part of the 1999 bill, made the 2008 crisis much worse. And now Elizabeth Warren is leading the charge to bring it back, right?
That's correct. Actually co-sponsored by Senator John McCain.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
We've got a situation here where the public is fed up with the behavior of big banks. And they're certainly fed up with the way they're being treated as consumers of those banks or customers. That's going on one side. And then we have an actual threat to our economy by the fact that these banks are too big to fail. But there's other stuff that's going on here, and I want to give a shout-out to Con Hurley, who's a academic who's really worked hard on a lot of these issues. The fact too big to fail is actually a subsidy. The banks enjoy great market advantages in all facets of their business because everybody knows that they're too big to fail. And that's something we really need to dumb down. It was pointed out to me that when we allowed banks, as we just did a few months ago, the ability to use insured deposits for derivatives trading and risky credit default swaps trading, We haven't even raised the insurance premiums that they're supposed to be paying into the Federal Deposit Insurance Program, even though they've put a tremendous amount of risk back on that program and by inference back on the United States taxpayer. So,
and I would just add to that, Jim, on the messaging side, I would just add to that, Jim Dean, that we haven't raised their premiums. You know, if I go out and get drunk and crash my car, my insurance premiums are going through the roof. These guys went out and got drunk on greed and crashed the economy, and they're still getting bargain basement insurance from the American taxpayer.
It's ridiculous. And so we really need to do a lot of things. And, of course, this bill, this 21st Century Glass-Steagall bill, is one of those things. And I think we should be injecting this into the presidential debate. And I think, frankly, it's going to, make a few people uncomfortable, but we've got to do it because we need candidates who are going to be forceful and not just rhetorically so about how they're going to rein in not only the abuses of the big banks, but also the abuses of big business in America. These are folks who employ a lot of people, but they're not creating jobs.
Right.
And that's not just the banking system. That's health insurance. It's media. It's a lot of other big industries where they enjoy almost 100% pricing power. And we've got to start reining this in and make this economy more innovative and competitive again.
I couldn't agree with you more. Now, Jim Dean, the other issue that you guys were active on or beginning to get active on the last time we talked is the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. Mary Jo White heads that. And weren't you guys getting involved in that a little bit?
Yeah, we were and we are. The SEC, the problems with this group go way long back, and really particularly with the Bush administration, who really did everything it could to make it as ineffective as possible and succeeded, as we saw in the crash of 2008. So this is not the time to have people in here who need to recuse themselves from cases because of their law firms or prior law firms' association with these companies. Or because of relatives. I understand how that might be okay in certain situations, not this one right now. We're talking about an industry that has just gone off the rails. They have an enormous amount of responsibility, but they're exercising none of it, and there's no accountability. And the SEC is the agency that all of us, as taxpayers and consumers, look to bring some level of enforcement and credibility back into the markets. I mean, we're not talking about anti-capitalism here. We're trying to help these people from themselves.
Yeah,
and Mary Jo White is not able to fill that role. I think she's good. It was a great prosecutor. She's not a bad person, but you need someone in here who's not going to have the kind of baggage that she's got from her career and go after these folks.
And you mean from her career defending Wall Street firms, so she has to recuse herself or whatever, family ties to
or
different
the client
firms.
relationships, whatever they were. I mean, it's not going to work this time around.
Right. And I would point out, by the way, to our listeners, I'm sure you know this, the first head of the SEC was Joe Kennedy, who was known as something of a rascal on Wall Street at the time, but he knew he knew the tricks of his old compatriots, and man, he hunted them down. He had no hesitation to go after his old pals when they were playing games with the rules, and that's exactly what we need now. Now, Jim Dean, last question for you. Democracy for America, DFA, your organization, is this week 11 years old. Am I right about that? And what do you think about this 11 years, how it's going so far?
Well, other than a little less hair to cut and a little grayer hair, it has been a fantastic ride. I mean, every day I am amazed by what people do to change their communities. And whether it's a town or a city or a congressional district or a state or people are doing great things out there. And to the extent that we've been able to help them and be involved with their efforts over the last 11 years, it's just been an incredibly rewarding experience. So now we got to figure out a way to keep it going for another 11 years.
Well, we're with you. I love the work you do. I'm always happy when you come on the program. You always give me a little lift, and I'm glad to know about the good work you're doing. So, Jim Dean, Chair of Democracy for America, thanks so much for coming on the program.
RJ, thanks for having me. Have a great rest of the day.
You too. We will be right back after this. I am Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.